Hey, I'm Scottie and thanks for joining me. The biggest problem I see with beginners drawing cars is getting the overall perspective of the car right, and also getting those tricky wheels right, getting the angles right. And once you understand these things, you'll really improve your car sketching. So first I'm going to be giving you a quick perspective lesson, and then I'm going to be sketching this van right here in a really loose way. And at one point I'm going to be using my secret weapon. So I'll show you that later. But before that, thank you so much for the response I got in my last video. All your comments, helping me to decide which reference to do, the van or the cat. And the van won quite convincingly, but Mark actually suggested, why not put the cat driving the van? I know it was a joke, but it made me laugh, so I thought I'd put the cat in the reference, in the window there, for all you cat lovers. Okay, so now onto the perspective rules that you really need to know. Okay, so in this example, we can look at this as quite a complex form with all the wheels and the little details here, or we could simplify it down to a basic shape. So that will help you add all the lines in as you're sketching. So the basic shape here is that this is actually within a big rectangular prism. If I draw a line here, this is on the corner, the front corner, the closest corner to us. And then we join that up along the bottom of the wheels. And then we go along the roof line here. And then go down the back. And then we also go across here. And then down, and then across here like that, and the top as well. And then we're following that angle there. Okay, so we have a rectangular prism. Having that in mind as you're sketching, even if you don't draw this, is really important. So I'm going to draw it again here quickly so I can show you the perspective. So I might exaggerate it just slightly, like this. Okay, so we have our rectangular prism, that's the car. So all of these lines, this one, and this one, they're all aiming at the same point. And that's really important. As you're sketching, if you understand that, as you're drawing the different lines, you know that they all have to meet. So the vanishing point on this side would be perhaps up there. And I'll draw this line, I'll extend it out. So yeah, it's here. And then this one, if this aims up here, that's wrong. So that means that maybe this line should be slightly down and then angled like that. I mean, we don't have to get it perfect with our loose sketching, but it's just the idea. And we know that both of the vanishing points for either side of this 3D object are on the same horizon line. So I can draw this horizon line across the top, intersecting there, and I know that then this would go all these lines on this side and this back one as well. That's why this line is so flat here. I had to change the angle quite dramatically from here to here because it's aiming over there like that. And so we have two vanishing points on either side. Okay, so on the example of the reference that we are going to sketch later, it's at a different angle. It's because the camera is slightly lower. On the previous reference, the camera is higher, so we're standing above the car. That's why the horizon line is at the top. Whereas this picture here, the camera is taken much lower, maybe at knee height. So here we can also see that there's a slight angle here, and it comes to that corner, and then we'll draw this corner down here, and then to the other corner, this way, and straight down, and then down again. Okay, so on this sketch, because the camera is at about knee height, we have the horizon line running right through the bottom there of the car, which is really cool. I'll draw a quick sketch up here what that could look like for the vanishing points. So the vanishing point is somewhere there. So the top roof goes there, bottom goes here, top goes there. So you have 1, 2. So all the lines, if you have a windshield, where do you draw that angle? You recognize where those two lines are pointing, and we aim towards it. So we go, okay, it must be aiming down to this point here. Any of these details here that are on the side are all aiming to this point. So it's just something to have in mind as you're sketching. If you're a beginner, I would even recommend drawing this out in pencil, which will really help when you come to inking. You can see where all the points are aiming towards. So that's the basics of the perspective of the overall shape. Now we need to talk about wheels. So when people draw wheels, often draw these wrong and at the wrong angle. So if I draw this shape here again, you might think you might be thinking, okay, the wheel, I'm just going to draw it like this on the side. It's a slight angle, so I'm going to draw it over like this. And you draw it straight down. Is that right? No. No, that's not right. The correct way to draw wheels, that we have the axle, which is the car axle, a line like this. And so that is the middle of the wheel here. How do we know at what angle to draw that wheel? Well, if you draw a line perpendicular to this line, so that means there's a 90-degree angle there, like this, and then you can draw your circle like here, symmetrical around those points. Wheel here might be a bit wider, so you increase that width on this axis, and then this wheel up here might be slightly thinner because it's further away, but still it's symmetrical around that point there, and symmetrical around that point. So this is the right way. And I've created some other examples here to make it a bit clearer. You can see the angle of the oval changes depending on the angle of the axis. I'll make sure I put this template up on my Patreon page for my supporters there. The funny thing about this example is that because the horizon line is exactly on the axle, means that in this case, which is not always the case, but it is straight down. So how I was saying before it wasn't straight down, well in this case it is straight down. But it's right because we drew a line on the axle and then we did a perpendicular line, and that just happened to be on the horizon line, so that means it is straight. So if you're an absolute beginner and you want to get into drawing cars, I recommend getting a pencil, drawing out these boxes with the lines, especially for the wheels to get that angle right. And then you can go in with a pen later and draw on top. So with those important rules in mind, let's get on to sketching the van here. Okay, so now we need to transfer this onto the page. So how do we do that? Well, I use dots. As I do with my buildings and people, sometimes dots can help because they disappear, but give you a bit of a reference point as you go. We're going to draw that front edge with 2 dots. So a dot here and a dot here. Okay, and then we'll also draw the other dot, the other height, and this one here. Okay, and then we come across, it's about 2 of these widths, so 1, 2, and then we have another dot there. 1, 2, well, it has to be the same distance across. And so now I have 6 dots to lay out the structure of the van. So we're going to use a slow line work, a one line kind of approach where we do one line sections. So holding our pen loosely here. So the next step is to draw the silhouette. So we're going to use those dots as a guide and draw the outline of the car without the racks. So we draw across the top, so just drawing it slowly, making sure we get to that other dot there. And then we come around and we come slightly down to this dot here. Now you can see that the angle here is quite steep of the windscreen, so come out a bit and then it bows around and comes here. So we have there. Now we're going to go on to the other side. Come down here. Comes down there, that's where the bumper bar, back bumper is, and we have the wheel. So the other wheel coming here, like that. Now we can draw, we're going to ignore the wheel shape at the moment, we'll get back to that. Now we're going to draw across here the bottom of the car, and then we'll go to the other side. It's about the same, similar size, and we come across. We can see that this bottom section here, the negative space, is about the same as this side. So that's how we know where to draw, how long across we draw. And we draw bottom here, and the wheel is a little bit lower, even though I'm missing where that dot is, it's a little bit lower to the other side. And so we have some shadows here, which you could add in. Now we can add those racks back in. So we'll go up here and follow that line, follows this line here, and then goes back down. And then we have the other rack which goes up, following this line still, back to that vanishing point, and then comes down here, following that top edge of the car. Goes back here, and then we have some wooden slats there, so draw those in. Sort of like a one line approach there, but we'll draw those straight down. Sort of bars, the front. Okay, so we've got the racks on top. Now I like to do the windscreen next. So this was the center point there. So it starts here. So it's halfway and then it's up a little bit from halfway. So let's bend our way around at a slight angle. It's got an angle there. Okay, and then we have the split between the colors, and we go right down the back. Okay, now we've got the two sections of the car, and we can add in the windows. So there are 3 windows. So if I'm unsure with things, I can do dots again. The corner of the window, next one. Okay, so I've got 3 corners, and then they should just go straight down. Slightly different than the reference. Okay, and then it's got these really great slats in one line. And then we go to this front window where the cat is chilling there. Go around the front here. And we can add in that side mirror as we go past. Okay, like that. Now let's put in the cat. Little dot for the eye there. Okay. So now we've added that section. Now we go down to the bottom section where the wheels are. And we're making our way to the tricky wheels. So, but let's draw this line here. And I'm comparing to other points in the sketch. So we'll go up here. Okay, we'll go around to this point here. Okay, so now we've got that section there. And we will add in the bumper bar. And the number plate. So, and we've got this front indicator section. Little vents. And then the logo here. So we can draw this slowly, a slow circle. It's right in the middle above the number plate there. V. W. Now the lights. So I really want to get these in the right position. I might draw this one first. I've drawn little dots here just to help give me confidence. There you go. So that's the 2 lights. Now let's draw the wheels. Now we talked about this before. We'll make sure that because the axis is on the horizon line like this, then that means we draw the other line here perpendicular. So the circles are going to be straight up and down on this one. So we're just going to draw, instead of drawing the tires, because you can't actually see the lines there, we're going to be focusing on the metal part in the middle. So if I wanted to, just to make sure I put them in the right position, I'll put 2 dots there and there. So I can see the heights. This one will be slightly higher. And now we can add in lines. And then there's a little hubcap. The distance here is a bit less. There's more space here. So we draw the next wheel cap. Just drawing in one line so it has a nice feel to it. There's a little light through there. And maybe this wheel has to be coming in a bit more. Oh, it's looking quite nice. So let's do the split between the door panels. You can hold your pen a lot looser here. Lighter and looser. We don't have to draw every single detail, but there we go. Okay, then the windscreen wipers. If we follow that line here, there'll also be a little faint indication that there's a window on the other side here. Oh, and the vents at the back. And then the final detail will be the handles. Okay, so now I have my line work that I'm really happy with. I'm going to be doing a wash on top. I've got my Pentel water brush pen with the large tip, my Winsor & Newton watercolors here. I'm going to start with a cadmium orange, and I've got a nice light wash, plenty of water in there. I'm going to start on this side and make our way over to the middle of this section. So we're doing each panel, each block of color with this line and wash technique. And as we go across, I'm going to grab some burnt sienna, so then I can bring that in as well. Give a bit of interest to the colour, changes as we go. And then I've got cadmium red on the back half. So there's a really nice gradient as we go down the car. And to add dynamic feel to it, we add a few little dots around the place. So there's a nice gradient as we can see there. Now I'm using Paynes grey to block in that section below the colour. Here. That's all the shadowy section. And we can add some of that shadow too. Ground, and I also like to add a bit of colour into that, so I'll get a bit of ultramarine, and that's around where the tyres are. Let's add some ultramarine to make that more interesting. I mix some ultramarine with Paynes grey here, and that could be that section up here just behind the glass. There's a blue on the front there. Okay, so we've got those sections. And what about a little cat? And rose madder for the little scarf he's got on. I'll grab some burnt sienna and I'll do these wood panels. And how can we make that different? We'll rose madder into it. So I just like adding some other colour there to make it interesting. I'm just going to add a bit of reflection in those lights. There's just little areas here to make it look like this, reflections in that shiny bit of metal. And if we add blue, ultramarine to the top, that's because the sky could be reflecting there. Prussian blue right there. So okay, so we'll wait for that to dry and then we can add our next coat. So we can add a shadows layer with a bit of purple, violet and ultramarine. So we have the purple colour here. And we can just add it in lightly in here, and might add a few across there. It's very light. That's a purple lake colour. It's a bit under here, and every and again a bit of blue. Just using my splatter brush. Could be a little bit in here. Okay, then as we get down to the bottom, we can use the violet. Go in. Where the darkest shadows are. Okay. And we've also got ultramarine. So a bit more here, ultramarine, and then okay. This gives it a lot of nice dynamic feeling there. So next I'm going to use my secret weapon, which I talked about before at the beginning, which is a toothbrush. And this section here where I have the gradient between the light orange and the red, I want to make this nice splatter effect right here with a darker colour. So I mixed rose madder and I mixed cadmium red hue, and I'll suck that up with this brush. I'm going to flick the paint in here and see if we can get a nice effect and texture here. Can you see that? Really subtle. It's not too strong, and it's more controlled than tapping here. Can build up nice, it's like an airbrush. I'll put some on this side too. Okay, so I'm happy with the watercolor. So now we're going to add some white highlights with my Uni-Ball Signo pen. So I made sure it's really, really dry so that the pen works really nicely on top. So we have a bit of a highlight. You can see the highlights. There's nice highlights there on these panels, the door handles, around the lights. You can imagine there's some streaky light coming down there on the number plate, and around these letters. So I'm sort of finding areas that are already dark, and then when you put the highlight in them, it stands out quite nicely. Some light around here just to sort of show how the shape of the tire there. I really like the feeling of this sketch. It's really nice and loose, the line work, but I had that framework to begin with, which made it easier to lay it all out. The watercolors, quite nice. I like the gradient and my secret weapon to make the nice airbrush effect there. So I'll put the reference for this and any support images I have up on Patreon. Also, if you want my honest opinion on all my sketching materials, what the best sketching materials to use, then I've just created a video for my Sketching School tier Patreon members, and that's up there. It's 52 minutes long. It goes through all my tools, my essential kit, and also all the tools that I've tested and used over the years. So that might be really helpful for you if you're starting out and you want to know what to buy when you're sketching in this kind of style. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.